Millie was happy to see Lulu, but the things she had to discuss with Tom were critical. Moreover, she was extremely curious as to why Lulu and Tom would be together. Several thoughts began crossing her mind at the same time. Tom saw her puzzled look and explained, "I asked her to drive me here in her car since I don't have one," to which she agreed. Millie understood.
Lulu, I'm happy to see you in Star City, but Tom and I have a very important matter to discuss. Could you give us some time alone? Afterward, I'll return to Chadworth Island and contact you. We have so much to catch up on.
Lulu nodded and said,
Have your talk. I'll go.
The onlookers were curious upon seeing the Land Rover SUV arrive, and they were dumbfounded when they saw Tom and Lulu together. Most of them were fixated on Lulu because of her mesmerizing beauty, and they were filled with envy over Tom. Lulu walked into her car and sped off into the distance. Then Tom and Millie walked toward the building. The people began talking after seeing these things. Have I gone blind, or have those two beautiful women gone blind? Why are they with that brat? What does that young man have that he gets the opportunity to be with two beautiful women? Where does that brat come from? Even goddesses seem to follow him. The fourth floor of the Starlight Building had a famous viewing cafe, with windows on every side, where one could see a panoramic view of most of the city. Once Tom and Millie were seated, a waitress arrived.
What will you have?
They placed their order and the waitress left to bring it. Millie said,
You mentioned you're the one who created Waterblock Dragon Pen and the 1000 Revolution Array. Is it true?
With his spiritual sense, Tom surveyed the surroundings to ensure there were no other cultivators in the cafe. He replied, Correct, it was I who created them. Millie grew tense.
As far as I know, the one who created the Waterblock Dragon Pen and the 1000 Revolution Array was the Supreme from the Immortal World. He has the same name as you, Tom Stevens. Can you explain to me what the relationship the two of you have?
It seems like you know a lot about this. Originally, I didn't believe people from the Immortal World could come to Earth, but contrary to my expectation, it seems so. However, before I answer your question, you must tell me, who's your mother? Why does your Everlasting Feast Hall have the Waterblock Dragon Pen and the 1000 Revolution Array?
Teresa Martin, I told you before.
Tom shook his head.
I don't want to know only a name. I want to know her origin.
Millie stared deeply into Tom's eyes and said,
Since you know about the Immortal World, I'll tell you. Teresa comes from the Immortal World as well.
Tom suddenly stood up with excitement. He placed his hands on the tabletop and replied,
You must not lie. There's a spatial barrier between Earth and the Immortal World. Moreover, there's no passable corridor between Earth and the Immortal World. So how was she able to come here? She has her methods. I've already answered your questions. Now it's your turn to answer mine.
Tom fell silent. He sat back down and closed his eyes. After a while, he opened them, and a bright light flashed. I want to ask you one last question. I'll answer your questions if your answer is to my satisfaction. Millie knitted her brow.
Go ahead and ask them.
Have you heard about the Western Fairy, Great Emperor Dante, and Demon Jessup? A cold and murderous aura exuded from Millie as she spoke.
Countless times, I have heard my mother speak these names in her unconscious state. They are all damned. They all must die.
Tom was taken aback when he felt Millie's violent aura. In that split moment, he was determined that his beloved apprentice was still alive. Not only was she alive, but she also knew what had happened to him. More importantly, she hated those bastards who had betrayed him. What Tom had worried about the most did not happen. He was grateful for this, but also greatly missed his apprentice, the person he fostered and brought up. Millie, it was by chance that I went to the Immortal World. I lived there for 10,000 years. But with the snap of my fingertips, the time was gone. Perhaps it was my fate since I did not vanish, and my soul and consciousness returned to Earth. In this life, I have people I abhor, and some I adore the most. In the Immortal World, I once received a disciple. Her name was Teresa Martin, and I'm the one who bestowed her with this name and raised her. Millie suddenly stood up and trembled at what Tom told her. She circled the table, stopped directly in front of Tom, and exclaimed,
I pay my respect to you, the Grand Master.
Tom asked, Your mother, is she my disciple?
Yes.
Where is she?
She's at the Everlasting Feast restaurant.
Without hesitation, he said, Let's go to Chadworth Island now and immediately visit the Everlasting Feast restaurant. Time had flown like an arrow. He was Teresa's master, but he was like a father who had finally obtained news of his long-lost child. He wanted to ask why there was no news from her in the past, and why he could not find her for thousands of years. But he would wait to see her to find out. He could not wait to see her again, and wished he could grow wings and immediately fly to the Everlasting Feast restaurant on Chadworth Island to see her. Tom started to rush out of the cafe, but Millie called,
Tom, please wait.
Tom stopped and asked with a surprise, Why aren't you coming?
Tom, let's go back to our seats. There are some things I have yet to tell you. When I've finished telling you those things, you can decide if we need to go to Chadworth Island.
Tom's brows knitted. He reluctantly returned to the table and sat down. Tell me, I'm listening.
Have you heard about the Space Magic Array?
Space Magic Array? In the immortal world, if one were to ask whose speed was the fastest, and who had continuously researched the strangest things, the answer, without a doubt, would be Draken. He was one of the strongest late-stage Supremes in the immortal world, who comprehended the mystery of time and space, and created the powerful space magic array. Wasn't this the array the Shade Demon, Draken, and never released? Tom nodded. Yes, I know it. Millie continued.
Thousands of years ago, my mother took a huge risk to infiltrate Time Island. She thought of every possible way to scheme against Draken. She decided to become his direct disciple to obtain the array chart of this space magic array from him. She fully focused on comprehending this array for several millennia. When Draken found out she had obtained the array chart, he chased her for thousands of years. Finally, she was able to comprehend the secret of the space magic array thoroughly. However, the last time she used this formation array, Draken severely injured her with his Twilight Nightmare. What did you say?
He finally understood why his apprentice was able to come to Earth. Among all the Supremes in the immortal world, if there was one who had a glimmer of hope to arrive on Earth, the person undoubtedly was Draken, for he was the one who comprehended the secret of time and space. If Draken thought Tom had anything to do with Teresa stealing the array chart, he would have a score to settle with him, and he might come to Earth to find him. Moreover, if Draken wanted to calculate the Earth's space coordinates, he must possess an ability. That was to learn the ultimate secret of the Heavenly Emperor's star movement divination art. Otherwise, he would not be able to come to Earth. Millie had confirmed that his beloved apprentice not only had learned the space magic array, but she also learned the Heavenly Emperor's star advancement divination art there. Tom gazed solemnly. Have you finished? Millie nodded and said,
Little do I know about my mother's matter, but that is everything I know.
Tom rose and said, Let's go to Chadworth Island. When they arrived at the airport, they found only 2 flights to the island, and the last flight had already taken off 20 minutes earlier. If he wanted to go to the island today, he needed to find another way. However, this would take much time, which caused Tom to become anxious.
There's someone I can think of that would help us.
Who is it, Millie?
Episode 1. Rewind. Hannah Oliver woke up to